Hi everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. Our trip down to the big city was fruitful. We got our safety inspection certificate, so we went to the ministry and got it all licensed up and on the road perfectly. So we're good. What we're going to do now is kind of take our little maiden voyage around the block and make sure everything is good and works like it should, and that we haven't got any lights or bad readings on gauges or anything like that. So let's get this thing, let's get some pavement under its wheels and see how she does. Well, let's go for a spin. Oh, hood's open. There we go. So right now we're in direct or third gear, which would have been high gear in an old 3-speed, and it's still not too bad. Then we can drop it into overdrive. And she just loafs along no problem. Not sure if the speedometer is accurate. It seems like it might be. I'll have to put my GPS in here and take it for a spin and make sure it's relatively close. We just went up that hill in overdrive. The little engine's got the torque to do it. Drives nice. Ride's nice too. There's no funny clunks or bounces or anything. It's got good shocks, good front end parts. I have no idea if the gas gauge is accurate, and it's getting pretty low. So I brought 5 gallons of gas with me, just in case. slant 6 engines. These things are awesome. The brakes are starting to feel better too, because everything is new, right? They're getting the sharp edges and that kind of wore off them, and getting the fuzz wore off them, and they feel good now too. It's got the old school 3-speed ratios in it, so it is still like an old car with a 3-speed manual. It's a pretty good jump from second to third, but this thing's got the torque to handle it. Yeah, I'd say I'm pretty much gonna guess that the speedometer is kind of in the ballpark. It says we're going 80 kilometers an hour or 50 miles an hour for those who prefer that unit of measure, and it seems about right. And if you're going up a big hill and it starts to slow down, well, look what you do. Just put it back down into direct, and you're fine. Loving this. Everything I hoped it would be. Well, a little bit of I hear a little tiny bit of pinging there. So we have two choices. Number one, I don't know what the heck it's got in it for gasoline. We can start running it on higher octane fuel, or I could dial a little bit of ignition timing out of it. It's also possible that I may have to jet the carburetor up one size or so. I got the Holley 1920 back on it now, and I'm pretty sure that also takes normal Holley jets like the 2245. That was awesome. Now that we're back, I'm going to go over a couple of things that need addressing, and we'll see what we can do to get them fixed. Well, our battles with the Holley 2245 continue. The accelerator pump has left the conversation. So we've got the Holley 1920 back on, and you know what? It really, really runs well with that. But what the problem is it leaks. So I tried the usual stuff. There's not really a lot of places for these things to leak. I tightened the screws on the bowl, and that didn't seem to slow it down. So I'll show you what I think is the problem. I think what's going on, the accelerator pump, there's the rod for it right there. And the diaphragm for it is in this end of the main body with a little cap over it. And I kind of think that it's leaking through there and it's running back, and it's coming out there where the shaft of it is. It's just a working theory at this point because there isn't really anywhere else it could leak. Oh, maybe here. I'll make sure all these other external screws are tight on it too. Anyway, for now, we're going to pull the bowl off. You can see here at the hinge end of the float here, those little screws. That's what holds the cap for the accelerator pump against the main body. And lo and behold, they were all loose. So I tightened them up. While I was at it, I got a piece of cork and cut a new gasket for the bowl. So now we're going to put this thing back together and we can start it up and see if it leaks. Oh, and while I'm at it, before I start it up, this here is where I had made up a really nice line for when we had the other carburetor on it. But, well, quite obviously that carburetor's not on it now. So this is the remains of a factory original one and then a piece I made to adapt it to the 1920. So what I'm going to do, now that I know that this works, we're just going to take this little bit of hose off, and I'll put a double flare on each end of this, and we'll use a union. That actually makes it easy. If we ever want to take the valve cover off, we can just pop this joint apart, and we can take the valve cover off. And then you can see there it is, right there under the float. Just a good old-fashioned standard Holley jet. So if we want to tune on this thing or fiddle around with it, at least we could change the jets, you know. All back together. Let's start it up and see if it stays dry. Well, it seems to be leak-free and okay now, and it's running pretty good too. Now we're going to go ahead and install a brand new, genuine Holley choke thermostat along with the special bolt that holds it down. And look at that, would you? So it seems to, every time you touch the throttle, it leaks. So it's definitely an accelerator pump. So we're going to have to pull this carburetor off and put a kit in it. Okay, so we've got in here, and you can see our old accelerator pump diaphragm. It's kind of messed up. So we got a new one here. We matched it up. It's got all the same holes. We got a carburetor kit for it. So we're going to put this baby in. There's really very, very little to these little carburetors. We're going to make sure, you can see down in there, the check ball for the, right down in there, the check ball for the accelerator pump. And we can hear it. It's free. It's good. So you can see where the link on the accelerator pump passes through and hooks into this little cam here. And just with your finger, kind of hold the throttle closed while we get the cover and the screws started. And hopefully this will fix our problem. Okay, it's this much back here so far. I've gone ahead and replaced the economizer diaphragm. I have to read up on what that does. But I kind of think it's a backwards power valve type of thing. But anyway, whatever. Now we have to set the float height. Now, I looked in the manual, like my factory service manual, and of course there's some kind of a jig that you screw to the carburetor, and it's like a go, no go. Well, obviously we don't have that. So the quick way to kind of get yourself in the ballpark with any carburetor float, just flip the carburetor upside down, and if the float is kind of level, you're probably okay. We can see this one here. I would consider that to be a little bit low. So we're going to bend the little tang there and see if we can get it up a little bit. There we are. We'll try it there. There are symptoms if your float level is off, like too much. There's kind of there's an acceptable range that it can be in, and it, you know, mostly work okay. If it's too low, you'll notice that it's kind of hard for it to transition from the idle circuit to the mains, and that's a good sign. And you'll get maybe a bit of a lean surge at cruise, light load, and you may hear some pinging, right? Conversely, if the float level is too high, it'll be running rich. It'll maybe blacken the plugs, and you may see fuel you may see fuel at idle gurgling out the main nozzles in here, and kind of loading up the plugs. Anyway, we'll go with it set there and see how it works out. Okay, that's better. It's dry as a bone. Now I gotta let it warm up for a second because I just put a cold choke on a warm engine. I gotta give it a second and see if it's gonna open up. That wire's on the wrong side of that spring. There's no kind of cup holder or any kind of holder for that matter in this truck. In the old days, we used to be able to get little cubbies that sat on the seat here and were held in with this seat belt, but with a stick shift, that kind of gets in the way of your elbow, you know. So I picked up this thing. You can get this exact one on Amazon or at Wally Mart, whatever. And of course, it's not going to stay there, right? It's got little teeth on the bottom of it to bite into the carpet in your car, but there's no carpet in here. We got vinyl. So all I did was, number one, I had to keep trimming it. Here's the bits. We just snuck up on it a little bit until it fit nicely. And then I took out one of these screws that hold the shifter housing to the floor and set this on top of it and went right back in the same hole as the screw I took out. So I didn't have to drill anything or make any more holes in my my rubber floor mat. So that's good. It's in there solid. Somewhere to put the Kleenex box and a couple of drinks or whatever. Another thing I did originally, there was a little kind of a little cardboard tray behind the seat. So what we did, we took that out and put in a plastic tray from a late 80s or 90s truck. It holds a lot more stuff. And to make a little bit more room, the 6x9 speakers that were floating around in here, that's hard to see. Let me put the flash on. There. I actually installed a set of factory original speakers in the back corners of the cab where they're supposed to be. So we've got all our loot loaded up here. We've got spare parts, a few tools, little bits and pieces, a tow strap, booster cables, anything that we figure we might need while we're out on the road. I also had to fix this. Oh, brother. Every time I looked at it, the tailpipe was pointing a different way. It'd be pointing down, it'd be pointing up. And I keep turning it back and tightening the clamp, you know. I thought, man, that's really weird. But I have dissimilar metals. You know, I've got a stainless steel muffler and a mild steel tailpipe stuck in it. But I finally said to myself, no, there's something not right here. And I just crawled under and fixed it. What was going on was the tailpipe wasn't far enough into the muffler. So when I was tightening the clamp on the muffler, it wasn't grabbing the tailpipe. So anyway, the clamp had made a hell of a mess of the back of the muffler. So I got my my tailpipe stretcher in there, and we got the muffler all fixed up. And I was able to shove the tailpipe in another 1.5 inches or so. And now the clamp grabs it good. It's whoops, good and solid now. Next thing we're going to do is install some 3rd gen tie down cleats in the bed here. So what we're going to do is we're going to drill through, and these drillings are going to go into the stake pocket so you won't see them on the outside. And we're going to install some riv nuts. I've got metric M8 metric riv nuts. We're going to install those and then crank these bolts down, and these will be good and solid. 03, 04, I think these were pot metal, and from 05 up they're like a ABS plastic. These are the plastic ones, so they don't go all foosty. They're pretty easy to put in because the holes are on 2-inch centers, so it's really easy to lay it out and install. So what we're going to do is we're going to center it between these two ribs here, and we're going to mark 2 inches from the wall and 2 inches apart, and that'll get us kind of right in the middle of the stake pocket and give us a little room to be able to get at it with ropes and stuff, right? Once we've marked, we could go ahead and center punch our 4 holes. And then we're going to go and drill a 3/16 pilot hole. These are the riv nuts or threaded inserts we're going to be installing. What the next step is, after we've got our pilot holes, we've got to open those holes up So these things just go in. You don't want a whole bunch of play. You want them to just go in. So what I found was the fourth step on this step drill is literally absolutely the right perfect size. So we're going to go and drill all 4 holes out to that, and then I'll show you how we put the inserts in. Now we're at the opinions are like noses, everybody has one portion of the program. We've got bare metal here, and if you wanted to, you could put some paint or some nail polish or something on them to help seal it up. We're not going to do that. Number one, this thing's never going to be out in the salt. And I want the splines on this, I want full engagement, metal on metal, as much as I can, because you don't want these things later, if you ever go to take this apart, to start turning in there, you know, because there's grease or something in there. So I'm just going to put this metal on metal. It's not like this thing is ever going to be out in the salt. So what we're going to do is we're going to screw, this is the thing, it looks just like a rivet gun, right? And basically what this is, it is a rivet, except that instead of the nail that breaks off and stays there, it's got a threaded mandrel that comes back out when you're done. And what we're going to do, instead of paint or sealer or anything, we're going to put some green Loctite on this baby. Because anything we can do to keep this thing from ever turning is what we want. And then you just put it in the hole and you give her everything you got. There. And that's our riv nut installed. We'll do the other 3 and I'll be back. And there's the finished product. Now the trick when you use these things, the bolts that you put in, make sure they're clean. We'll clean the rust off of this. And lots of anti-seize on them or some heavy grease or something, so they're not going to stick, because steel bolts in aluminum riv nuts, you know, that's going to be trouble. You can also buy stainless steel ones, and they might be a better bet if it's going to be subject to a more harsh environment than this truck will be. The only reason I wanted to do it this way was I wanted to keep these nice factory bolts, because you can see they've got like a countersunk head on them, and they fit right in there nice. Other ways you could do this, you could switch to some different hardware, and you could drop, like if you've got stake rails like this, or bed rails, you could drop the post all the way down to the bottom, and you could use some long lag bolts or something and screw right into the oak. That'd be strong as hell too. You could even mark these, drill right through them, and put a T-nut in from the back, and then you could actually put a bolt in it. That'd also be really good. And of course, if you've got a fleet side box, you would just be drilling through your inner skin, and you could actually go into the truck and just put a normal nut on the other side. You could skip all this business. But anyway, this is what we've done, so we're going to get it put together and see how it looks. There we go. Now we've got 4 strong tie-down points in the 4 corners of the bed. You can see there's the ones at the back. I mean, we've got the stakes to tie stuff to. There's some tie-down hooks on the top, but sometimes you've got stuff down in that you want to tie in, you know. So that'll be really good. And there's millions of these things in the backs of the 3rd gen Rams in the scrapyard. I like them. I like them. I saw them in my 3rd gen Ram, of course, has these, and I said, hey man, those are great. I'm gonna put those in everything. So this is the first piece of everything that I'm putting them in. So there is an example. That's the kind of little job our hooks can do. I have to have the gas can with me because my first trip with this is down to the gas station, and there's been some speculation as to whether or not the fuel gauge is accurate, and it's reading very low right now, so I don't want to have to hoof it back. So we'll just take this with us until we know we got a full tank. So that's pretty good. This has been a great project. We didn't really build a whole truck, but we did a whole lot of stuff to this truck. Just, you know, stuff that I kind of wanted to do to it, right? Like, did we have to change the rear end? No, but I wanted to put a posi rear end in it. Did we need to put a 4-speed in it? Yeah, I needed to put a 4-speed in it. Anyway, I'm very happy with how it turned out. I can't wait to get it out on the road and cruising around and having some fun with it. It's a great little truck. It runs great, and everybody that looks at it, it makes them smile. Anyway, I'd like to thank a couple of people and places. Nick at the Real Guy Garage. When the motor was blown up in this thing, he came through with a good slanter, and it was the one I wanted, a hydraulic one with the lightweight crankshaft and everything. That's the one we wanted. He had one. He fixed us up. Thanks, Nick. It's a great engine. And I would also like to throw a shout out to Nigel and the folks at National Moparts in Beaverton, Ontario. They helped me out a lot with this, with, little bits and pieces that you need to put. It's easy peasy. Anybody can go decide they want to put a 4-speed in and come up with a transmission. It's all the other little bits and pieces. Anyway, we got it. Every single piece of this is a factory 4-speed piece. It's like a complete factory install. It went perfectly. I'd like to thank Deb's dad, John, for making sure the truck came back home when he just lost his place to keep it. But it's still, it's still your truck, John. I'm just the custodian of it. Deb still calls it Dad's truck, not our truck. Oh well, it started out as my truck, but it was John's truck for a long time, and he did all the good work to it to keep it in the shape that it's in today. That'll do it, I guess. I'm gonna go now. Stay tuned because we've started Project 8 Ball, the black '68 Ford convertible, and like I said before, that's our most ambitious project to date. That's gonna that's gonna push me to my limit. That one. Anyway, it is what it is. I decided I want to do it. There's just something about '68 Fords that tugs at my heartstrings. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. I hope you'll come back and see us again. And until then, I'm Kevin, saying so long for now from the Claremont Classic Garage.